Now that all that controversy is behind me for a while, it's time to review an episode. The Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000. That title's gonna kill me. This episode starts with Rainbow Dash waking Fluttershy up in the middle of the night. And then there's some innuendo. Apparently it's cider season once again, and Rainbow Dash wants to hurry into line, because Pinky always gets there first and buys up all the cider. Of course, when Rainbow gets there, there's already a huge line, with Pinky in the front. Yeah, you know, I'm not too keen on character torment episodes. When the sun rises, cider season opens, and the line begins moving. My first problem with this episode. They keep on talking about how the Apple family frequently runs out of cider before certain ponies later in the line get some. With Pinky buying a bunch, you'd think they'd place a limit or something, or maybe force them to go to the back of the line. It's, you know, a thought. I suppose I should bring up whether or not the cider is alcoholic. In the US and Canada, where the show is made, standard cider is just spiced apple juice, and hard cider has the alcohol in it. However, it's probably cider season because the apples are beginning to produce their own alcohol, and no one gets this excited for apple juice, however good it is. So yeah, I personally am going with the cider being alcoholic. When they run out of cider for the day, of course just before Rainbow gets some, ponies start complaining, and Applejack spouts some cliché dreck straight from a Smucker's Jam commercial. And then Pinky accidentally starts rubbing it in Dash's face. Remember what I said about Luna Eclipsed and how I said I wouldn't tolerate a character accidentally perpetrating a problem? Guess what? Same writer and same character. Granted, it's not driving the plot this time, but I think it's attempting to drive the humor. This is all interrupted when a machine drives in. This is the titular Super Speedy Cider Squeezy. The Super Speedy Cider Squeezy. Screw it, I'm calling it Steve. This is the titular Steve, and it's driven by these two, FiM and FLAM, who begin singing this episode's song.
Well, looky what we got here, brother of mine. It's the same in every town. Ponies with thirsty throats, dry tongues, and not a drop of cider to be found. Maybe they're not aware that there's really no need for this teary despair.
And the key that they need to solve the sad cider shortage you and I will share.
It's a fun song, but not one I listen to too often. It goes on for quite a while, but since it's full of exposition, it doesn't count as filler. That's the proper way to keep a song in the episode that's longer than 3 minutes. Yeah, I pretty much hate everything about May the Best Bet Win. This song almost goes on for 4, by the way. The Steve can make cider much faster than the apples can, and just as good too. So the FiM FLAM brothers offer to sell it to the apples, but since they're trapped in the past, they don't want to buy it. Okay, my next problem with this episode. It seems to suggest that we should keep traditions, even if they're counterproductive, which in my personal opinion is one of the worst anti-morals you can possibly have. Alright, the deal isn't quite as good as I'm letting on. The FiM FLAM brothers eventually suggest a 25-75 split, with FiM and FLAM getting the 75. Okay, Emil Larson, I'll give you your point back, just tread lightly. Yes, those exclamation points are my running score, so I don't end up surprising anyone when I pass or fail an episode. The apples refuse, so the FiM FLAM brothers decide to become competitors instead, and promise to supply cider for everyone in town, and attempt to drive Sweet Apple Acres out of business. And then the scene just ends, and not place to stop. The next day, the same thing happens. The apples run out of cider, and we get to see Rainbow Dash far in the back. Since it wasn't as bad as last time, I won't deduct a point, but please, stop it before we get into some uncomfortable territory. I don't know about the writers, but I don't like to see Rainbow Dash in misery. Though with things like cupcakes, who can really blame them for thinking that the fans want to see Rainbow Dash in pain? The FiM FLAM brothers return with plenty of cider. They hand Rainbow Dash a mug, which gets knocked out of her hooves and splashes on the ground.
Family apples. Is this some kind of cruel joke?
Yes, it is. The FiM FLAM brothers promise to make more cider than all of Ponyville can drink, and then Apple Bloom starts challenging them, claiming that she and her family can make more cider than all of Ponyville can even imagine. Granny Smith tries calming Apple Bloom until FiM here calls her a chicken, getting her to accept the challenge. Whoever can make more cider in 1 hour wins. And as an added bonus, FiM and FLAM get to use Apple Family apples, and the winner gets control of Sweet Apple Acres. Capitalism ho? I know that Granny Smith is a little angry, and you should usually respect your elders, you know, unless they do something batshit crazy like that. The Apple family has absolutely nothing to gain and everything to lose here. Oh, and just look at how sad Granny Smith and Apple Bloom are, even though they're the ones who went through with that stupid deal with absolutely no reluctance. I'm sorry, but this plot is worse than forced. There is no reason they should be in this situation. Applejack should have talked Granny Smith down, and the episode should have ended right there. Right now, this episode is failing, but there's still half an episode to go, and maybe Emil Larson can redeem it. The next day, Mare, oh great, she's back, announces the rules of the competition, which I already stated. The competition begins, and FiM and FLAM with their Steve are way ahead, making 6 barrels for every one of the apple families. Since this would be too pathetic if things were going on as they were, Twilight asks if Honorary Family could join. FiM and FLAM state that they don't care if all of Ponyville would help. Hey, that's how you do it. Flim and Flam are overconfident, so it actually makes sense that they would bias the rules against themselves. And Applejack, without hesitation, invites her friends to help. I'll talk about this later. So they start going, and this is definitely an entertaining scene, and it puts the apples in the lead. Then Flim and Flam turn off the quality control. Soon, time is up, and Flim and Flam win. And in their celebration, they kick the apples out of town, which leads to all the town's ponies to feel so sad. That's not justified either, since they even let out some cheers when Flim and Flam were in the lead. What did they think was going to happen when Flim and Flam won? Then Flim and Flam gives some crappy cider to the ponies, which is more stupid to throw in the pile. They at least had some good cider, and it takes them, what, 5 seconds to make more? And then they ride off because no one wants their crap and they leave. Of course, that wasn't the deal, but whatever.
Princess Celestia, I wanted to share my thoughts with you. I didn't learn anything.
Yeah, that moral is probably the best one in the whole damn show. Alright, give them a point for that. And I suppose you should know how the joke with Dash never getting the cider turns out. Okay, I'll give you a point back for ending the joke on a high note. Yes, that's the correct way to end a mean-spirited joke. Just don't take it so far next time. Final score, 3 stars. Yeah, Emmy Larson's worst episode to date, I stand by it. But the worst episode from one of the best writers is still better than anything our lesser writers have done this season. You can tell that I hate it when the plot is forced. I don't care if a character would believably do it. Someone should have stopped Granny Smith, or the deal must have been made a little sweeter. At least give the Apple family something to gain. And no, cider for everyone doesn't count. Luckily, it's not as bad as shoving that tortoise into the episode for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And like I said, it was believable that Granny Smith would have done something like that. Speaking of cider for everyone, being mean-spirited for humor is really hard to do well. Here's how you start. Make sure that the character deserves it. Rainbow Dash was talking about torturing Pinky, sure, but that doesn't cut it. And the thing the character does to actually deserve it needs to happen within the episode. I don't want to hear about this character building up ill will in previous episodes. Rainbow Dash better get some kind of special treatment in the next episode. No, wait, she ends up breaking her wing and having to hide a new passion from her friends. Oh well. And then there's Applejack. So, she's not stubborn anymore. Great. To me, that's like Fluttershy not being shy anymore, or Twilight not having crazy freakouts. Yes, it's a problem that needs to be worked on for character development. But in a way, it's essential to who they are, and to put it bluntly, keeps them interesting. You'll note that Applejack doesn't have another episode until Apple Family Reunion, which I will have to deal with at a later date. She doesn't need to be stubborn, but she still needs to have problems. Or else you're gonna get something like Apple Family Reunion. I'm not looking forward to that one.